Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. It's the fourth Wednesday of the month, and that means it's time for our Birds Notes program. Joining us, as always, is bird expert and conservation biologist for Audubon, Vermont, Mark LaBarr. Thanks for coming in. We got you out of the field.
Yes, yes. It's right. Nice to be here as always.
Well, what do you have for us today?
Well, I'm going to try to catch up on some viewer mail, but first I wanted to talk a little bit about the Vermont habitat stamp.
We talked about it.
Yeah, so a couple months ago we had Dave Adams come in, and it turns out that May and June were great months for bringing money into the habitat stamp. And I just wanted to, reach out to our viewers and thank any of those that contributed to that stamp during that time.
And people still can.
And people still can. You can go to the Vermont Fish and Wildlife website, or you can Google Vermont Habitat Stamp. It'll bring you right there for $15. You get a nice little stamp sent you in the mail. And the nice thing about it is we're now working with the state on a couple of wildlife management areas to take that money and put that into bird conservation on those sites, primarily for shrubland and young forest birds. So that money in action.
Money goes right into
there.
action.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So again, thanks everybody for helping with that. It's been a nice thing to see.
All right, awesome. And so let's catch up with some viewer mail. What do we got here?
Yeah, so this is the first time I think the two of us have done viewer mail. So let's see how we get through this. I think you have the first one.
I do. It's from Ed Connolly and Carolyn Plage, or Plage, or sorry, Carolyn, if I don't quite have it right. But they write in, our white-crowned sparrows as rare in Vermont as our old bird book seems to indicate. We have 3 in the backyard. We're in Shaftesbury and with a North Bennington address.
So they aren't necessarily common, but we do see them. And I had to apologize to Ed and Carolyn because it was right at the beginning of the season when I got them, didn't get back to them. I try as best as I can to get back to everybody that sends an email or writes. Right. But they did send in a couple of pictures. White-crowned sparrows nest further north, but we do see them in the springtime. Yeah, and you can see how they get their name. And they will be around for, a couple days, maybe a week before they move further north to their nesting areas. So brief little visits. It's got that plain breast, kind of a larger sparrow, but a great one to see when they do pop into Vermont.
Yeah, I've seen them. I get very excited about them. And then they do kind of disappear.
And then they disappear, yeah.
Okay. Our next letter is from Carrie Downey, who writes from Lebanon, New Hampshire. Oh, and I'm going to read that as well. It's right here.
Yeah.
So she's sweet. She says, I'm not sure if you answer questions from New Hampshire.
Of course we do. Yeah, New York, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Quebec.
So she sent in a picture she thinks is a fox sparrow. Her bird book is a little old, but the map doesn't show New England as a habitat for fox sparrow. It's an absolutely beautiful bird, very rusty red tail feathers, and she washes often, so she wonders about this little bird. We can sort of see it here.
Yeah, so this is the picture she sent, and perfect coloration for a ground bird. And fox sparrows are very similar to white-crowned sparrows. So again, another species that nests further north. We see them for a brief time, oftentimes in the spring and the fall as they move through. I think I have another picture here of one without the leaf litter around.
So you can really see that breast is so
that rusty breast, and you can see the brown is really nice. Often, sparrows, people kind of clump them all together, but they have kind of triangular shaped markings on their breast. And this is what happens with some of the older bird books, is they don't show some of the newer ranges or migration paths, so they don't give you the full picture. But again, this is a great bird to see in the spring. You know, I see them in my yard for 2 or 3 days, and then they're gone.
Yeah, and things do have changed over time.
Things have changed, and so have bird books.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a number of them out there that are really good and explain those migration paths and put them on maps.
And update those that if
Correct.
they have changed. So we have one from Brad and Evelyn Weeks of Bradford, I think you're going to read.
Right. So, hi, Mark. I just can't ID this bird. He, she are feeding babies in the birdhouse. Thanks for your help. P.S. My wife and I enjoy watching you every time on your Across the Fence show, which is nice.
Yeah.
So this little guy, and again, you can see the birdhouse here, and right up on the branch, just to the right of the birdhouse, is the bird they're talking about, and this is a house wren. Okay, and house wrens are notoriously secretive. They build nests in bird boxes. Oftentimes, I think we've talked about them, the male will build them in multiple boxes. And it's usually a stick nest. You know, this is what the bird looks like up close. Pretty brown, but they are cool little birds.
So sweet.
Yeah, backyard birds. You can see that long bill for eating insects and the like. And if you have birdhouses, especially ones that are a little closer to, you know, the edge of shrubbery or the edge of woods, you're going to potentially pick up a house sparrow.
Okay, terrific. And there's one from Larry Philby. Oh, here it is. Larry writes to Audubon, Vermont, that he watches this program, finds it very interesting, which is great. He's been feeding birds in North Danville for over 33 years, and the feeder's in full view of his bathroom window, so it's good for catching lots of birds and other critters. He says that he spotted a bird in some photographs we have. He's never seen it before, and no one around here seems to know what it is, but this is a pretty dramatic bird.
Yeah, so he sent me a couple pictures. This is not them, but I wanted to do this, bring this picture on because it was a Baltimore Oriole. And it is a bird that comes in, and one way that you can see them on a regular basis is to do what this picture shows, is their fruit. They love to eat fruit, so hanging oranges or putting oranges on a nail on a deck or something will bring those birds in. And it's funny because Orioles will come in, they make these hanging nests up in trees, so oftentimes when they're building the nest, you'll see them around on the ground picking up nesting material. But then they kind of shift and disappear up into the trees, and you just might not see them as often as you would, but they're still around.
Well, I saw them in apple trees. When trees are blooming is when I've seen them early in the spring. That's the only time I've seen them.
Yep, so they'll take advantage of the apple trees, the flowers, the insects that are coming into the nectar, you know, the nectar itself. You can get Oriole feeders, which are just like hummingbird feeders. The perches are just a little bit bigger to accommodate the larger size of the bird.
Great, wonderful. And now Sue, oh no, we don't want to miss Donna Wiley from Swanton.
I think you have that one.
Here it is. Here it is, this lovely little note. She, of course, enjoys birds' notes across the fence. I think I am having a hairy, or that she has a hairy woodpecker. If it's not a downy, that's always something to figure out between the two of those, one a little bit bigger. It taps on her shed's metal roof. It wakes me up very early in the morning. I presume it's trying to sharpen its beak, she says. This is the second season that it's happened. Is there anything that she can do to stop this habit?
So again, she sent this to me in May. Getting back to her a little late, but really there isn't. So the bird, I'm thinking it might be a yellow-bellied sapsucker, which looks a lot like a hairy or downy woodpecker. It could be hairies or downies, but yellow bellies are notorious for this. And they drum. So instead of singing, they'll use a tree, or in this case, a roof or a stovepipe or a mailbox, anything that amplifies the noise of their bills hitting that, of course, so keeping people awake in the morning. So hopefully, at this point in time, that situation has resolved itself for her.
Right.
But if you've got a big tin roof,
they love it.
They love it, and there's not much you can do about that.
And a similar situation from your friends Sue Wetmore and Brandon.
Yeah, so Sue writes, enjoyed your Across the Fence program and especially the topic of birds fighting their reflections. So a similar kind of thing, birds hitting things with their bills. We wintered in Florida, and one day I heard a loud rapping on a neighbor's trailer. Turned out to be a pileated woodpecker whacking on its reflection. A wonder the window didn't break. So pileateds, and you can see, they're big woodpeckers, and you can see what they can do to a tree. So you can imagine that you know, that window was a tough window to put up some of those poundings. So thanks to Sue for sending that.
Anything you can do about that?
You know, you can sometimes, with a window, if it's one window, you can drape some aluminum foil. You want to break that reflection up. There's decals sometimes you can put on it.
We also just similarly, Annette Smith from Danby wrote that a hummingbird hit her window and got stunned, and she actually was able to pick it up and help it get a little bit of water, and that helped. We maybe shouldn't pick up wild things, but in this case, what do you say?
So yeah, so this is a situation, the hummingbird got stunned. Many birds do that, and oftentimes, you know, you just want to leave them alone and they'll get back on their own by themselves. Hummingbirds sometimes can use a little sugar water. And in this case, that's what Annette did, and she thought it was a baby hummingbird, but we can tell by, this is another picture she sent, which is really awesome to see those, those...
right in her hand.
Right in her hand, and just, it's a male. You can see it's a ruby-throated hummingbird in all of its glory, and fortunately, you know, a little bit of that sugar water was enough to get this guy back on his wings, I guess we should say. And it flew off.
Wonderful.
So a nice ending to that story.
Right, so you can be helpful. Well, we have lots of inquiries from our viewers from all over the region. It's great. We'll come back and do some more of these. This is really fun.
Yeah, it is.
Read all the letters.
And keep sending things in, and I'll work my darndest to respond back and get some on the air.
In time. Well, now that it's not spring, maybe you have a moment.
Yes.
It's still out in the field. So if you have any bird-related questions, you can pass it along to Mark at the address on your screen, or you can drop Mark an email. His address is mlabarr@audubon.org. Send Mark your questions and pictures, and he'll try to find the answers for you on the upcoming Bird Notes. Again, Mark LaBarr from Audubon, thank you so much for coming in.
It's great, always great.
And thank you for joining us on Across the Fence. I'm Fran Stoddard.